What is going on, everybody? It is Daniel Wright, and you are here listening to another episode of Paving the Way. I hope you have had an absolutely fantastic, amazingly awesome, wonderful week, and you are hopefully looking forward to a good weekend ahead. So it is Saturday morning that you're listening to this or watching it, and I appreciate you tuning in with us, or with me, I guess, because it's just me and you right now. So, guys, I want to start off our weekend talking about a little topic on how we perform. How we perform personally, professionally, in different areas of our life or things like that, and what all that entails and kind of what goes into that. So I've got a few key points that kind of all go with each other, and I'll reverse engineer what I've learned on how we perform. And when I talk about how we perform, I'm talking about whether it's things such as how we perform at work. If we have a meeting, if we have a presentation, a sales call, whatever it may be that we're doing, how do we perform when we show up there? Whether it's at home, when we're with our spouse, our significant other, our family, our kids, our parents, friends, whatever it may be. How are we performing there? If you're going out on a date, maybe some of the people here listening are, in the dating world, and you're going out and you're meeting and greeting with new people, and you're trying to figure out the best way to do that. So there's a lot of different parts of our life that we're expected to perform. And when I say expected, I believe that we should expect that of ourselves. Not saying that we have to all of a sudden create this, fake world or fake anything like that, but we're expected to show up and be a contributing member to whatever it is that we're in at the time, right? So here's what I believe. All right. I believe that how we perform is a direct result of how we feel. How we feel is a direct result of how we show up. And how we show up is a direct result of how we prepare. All right. So if we break that down a little bit, so like I said, how you perform is a direct result of how you feel. Well, how are you going to determine how you feel when you show up somewhere? I'm not talking about if you have a cold or if you have allergies or if you're having a bad day or this or that. Just like generally, like, how do you feel about you when you show up? When you show up to perform at that date, at that meeting, at that job or whatever it may be. And how you feel is directly impacted on how you show up, in that mental space. How do you feel about how yourself showing up? Are you prepared for it properly? Are you, going into something that you feel confident in? Are you doing something that's completely out of your comfort zone? What's the situation there? How are you showing up to whatever it is you're expected to perform for? And how you show up is directly affected by how you prepare to show up, right? So when you're preparing, there's a few things, that can kind of go into that. That's things such as, simple enough as your hygiene. Are you making sure you're taking care of yourself? Are you putting in the effort to, to look good, to smell good, to feel good, things like that? Have you gotten enough rest? Are you expected to show up for a meeting at 8 a.m. on Monday morning and you're still recovering from Saturday night? Are you doing things that, are going to set you up for success by getting enough rest in place? I know we live in a very busy world, a very demanding world, that takes a lot of our time, and sometimes rest gets put on the back burner. We're distracted by a lot of things, and we're kind of, just continuously pushing, going from one thing to another to the next. And it can be hard sometimes to get enough rest, right? But nonetheless, that is going to allow you to be able to show up well and perform well if you're rested. What are the things that you're doing for personal and professional development? Because if you're putting in the time, during the unseen hours when no one really knows what you're doing, where you're doing it, why you're doing it, for the good of yourself, personally and professionally, when you're putting in the work there, and that you have that development, that those skills that you've been working on building, that's going to help you feel better about showing up and performing how you need to perform. How are your relationships in your life? Are you taking care of those things? Things at home, are those going well? Could they be doing better? If you evaluate that, are you giving your best to your spouse? Are you giving your best to your kids? Are you giving your best to your coworkers and your peers and your friends that you interact with on a day-to-day basis? Because whether we know it or not, those things are operating in the subconscious. They're operating in the back of our mind, And, I've been guilty of it before. Maybe Kelsey and I get into a disagreement or discussion about something, and I know that it's affecting how I perform, the rest of that day, or at least for a little bit, because I'm sitting there thinking about, was I, could I have done this differently? Should I have said that differently? Whatever it may be. So making sure that your relationships are as strong and as solid as possible, you know, that's going to go into how you perform every day. A lot of people say, "Oh, leave home at home and work at work," and that's fine and all. But like, let's be honest, we're all human. We all have emotions that intertwine with each other, and one thing affects the other. Work affects home, home affects work, and it goes back and forth. So keeping those relationships in check are definitely important, and will be conducive to making sure you perform at the best of your ability. And then, the last point I have is, how's your health? Your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. Are you doing the things necessary to make sure that you are able to show up the best version of you for those who count on it? Right. So when you're showing up at home, when you're showing up at work, when you're showing up on that date, when you're showing up, to give that presentation or whatever it may be, are you taking care of yourself properly to make sure that you can show up, that top notch version of you? And when you are, like, when you're out of shape, when you're eating like crap, when you're, just not taking care of you the way you need to take care of. And again, just kind of like your relationships, your health, if you have poor health habits, that's going to be operating in the back of your mind. That's going to, to be a factor in how you show up and perform, especially if you're trying to perform in an area of high achievers. Because let's face it, we all are guilty of comparing ourselves to one another. So if you know that you go home and you're eating freaking pizza rolls, sucking down Mountain Dew, and just doing, putting all sorts of crap in your body that's not super healthy, and then you're showing up next to somebody who is, eating relatively healthy, they exercise, they work out, they read, they develop things like that, that you're not, going to feel as good as they are. So therefore, you've already put yourself in a feeling of inadequacy, and therefore trying to convince yourself to perform better is good. You're already at a losing battle. Like, you've already started out behind the eight ball because of the things that you didn't do to prepare to perform. Okay. So to recap that, I believe that how you perform is a direct result of how you feel. How you feel is a direct result of how you show up, and how you show up is a direct result of how you prepare. We have a lot of control over a lot of things in our life, guys. And, I understand, maybe there's some cultural things that have changed and developed, for, whether it's workplace attire or the whole work from home stuff, and people just kind of roll out of bed and into work. But most of the time I'm going to stick with the traditional belief that, getting up and taking care of yourself, guys, putting yourself together, trimming up your beard if you got a beard, if it's long, keep it groomed, whatever it may be, right? Brushing your teeth. Nobody wants to be greeted with morning breath when they show up at work, right? Ladies, just putting stuff on, wearing clothes or things like that you feel good in, whatever that may be. That because when you feel good, you're going to show up and perform good, and you're going to be happier. The people around you are going to be more impressed by your performance and things like that. And please don't get it confused with a performance of putting on a show. It's a performance of just your actual, like, state of mind, of where you're at, in your life, in your day, in your tasks, your duties, things like that. You're gonna accomplish them better the better you prepare for them. So that's my little word of encouragement today. Kind of take that into maybe, next week. How are you going to show up on Monday to make sure that you can be the best version of you for all those who count on it? And it's something that I work on every day. I try to be the best version of myself wherever I'm at the time. Am I always an expert on that? No. Could I do better at it? Yes. Is that why I talk about these things and put them out here in the internet world and on podcast land? Yes, because it holds me accountable. So I hope this does the same for you. I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. If you enjoyed your St. Patrick's Day weekend, or you're going to enjoy it, whatever it may be. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. I look forward to talking with you.